Looking for love.
Hey everybody, it's me, Trini Barbie, and today we got how to beat the airdrop killer in drop. Let's get into it.
Have you ever been on a date that was so bad you couldn't wait for it to end? Well, try looking for love when there's a mysterious meme lord watching your every move. All the jokes start going from cringy to deadly. That's exactly what happens when Violet here finally takes a chance with a guy she met online, but finds herself in the middle of a secret game where her family's lives are on the menu. And it all ends with a wild 15-minute action scene that's crazier than you would ever expect. We're here to break down the mistakes made, what you should do, and how to beat the meme lord in drop. Alright, this woman is about to have the most traumatizing dining experience of her life. Violet here is a therapist who's just getting back in the dating pool after the death of her husband. She finds it hard to trust anyone after everything he put her through, but tonight she's finally taking a chance on a date with this handsome photographer, Henry. And that's about to be her biggest mistake. With some help from her sister Jen, she picks out a saucy red dress and gets ready to head out for the night, stopping to say goodbye to her son Toby before she leaves. But little does she know that she's walking straight into a trap. Arriving at the restaurant, she gets on the elevator and takes it all the way to the top floor. But before the night has even started, her date says that he's running 10 minutes late. Giving him a chance, she decides to wait at the bar until he gets there, accidentally bumping into this finance bro Connor as she walks to her seat. While there, she fends off the flirtatious piano player and makes friends with this nice older gentleman Richard, but strangely she keeps getting memes sent to her via DigiDrop from someone named Let's_play, asking her if she wants to have some fun. Oh, it's completely bizarre, alright, and there's absolutely no way to tell who they're coming from. But that's when her date finally shows up. Okay, Violet here thought she was in for a high-class meal, but it looks like trouble is on the menu. I mean, she's been receiving these bizarre memes for a few minutes now, but the lack of any nonverbal cues makes it difficult to understand the message's true meaning. This leaves her without much information to work with, but maybe we can learn some more by analyzing the memes themselves. First, they sent her the Helmo meme, which we all know shows an unrestrained love for violence and anarchy. By putting themselves at the center of it all, the sender is implying that they'll be the one who's having fun in a chaotic and destructive way, possibly with Violet on the receiving end of that danger. Then they sent the left exit 12 off-ramp meme, but unlike Helmo, this one's not really asking a question. It's more like a direct statement that she's heading for trouble, and whoever sent the meme already knows it. So depending on how you choose to look at them, the messages could definitely be interpreted as a threat. Now, even though the memes are anonymous, there might actually be a way to figure out who's sending them. I mean, the app uses short-range signals to connect to devices that are in close proximity, meaning that the sender is most likely in the room with her right now. The easiest method would be to scan the room and look for anyone who keeps looking at her and back at their phone in a suspicious manner. Then she can accept one of the drops and reply back with a shocking image of her own, which might trigger a visible reaction from the sender. If she begins to feel threatened or harassed, I'd inform the bartender right away, disable the app on her phone, and block the sender to prevent them from sending any more messages. After the meal, I'd also ask her date or a member of the staff if they could walk her out to her ride when it gets there, and of course, go straight to the police if any harassment gets any worse. But Violet here still has no idea that her date from hell is just getting started. As they take their seats, Henry apologizes for having his work bag with him, explaining that he can't leave his camera unattended or someone else might try to steal it. Looking out the window, she takes a deep breath as she admires the view, but it's not just the heights that have her so nervous. You see, they've been talking online for months before she agreed to meet, and now it's almost surreal that they're actually seeing each other in person. But it won't be long before this dream date becomes her worst nightmare. Explaining that her son wasn't feeling well, she asks if it would be rude to leave her phone on the table just in case they call. but Henry here completely understands. That's when their extremely enthusiastic waiter Matt comes to introduce himself, immediately misreading the two of them as a couple celebrating an anniversary. After giving him their drink orders, the two of them chuckle about it as he walks away, but they have absolutely no idea how crazy their night is about to get. Violet here gets a text, expecting it to be from her sister, but when she looks at her phone, it's actually the same mysterious account demanding that she accepts their drops. Noticing that she looks concerned, her date asks if something is wrong, and she shows him her screen, explaining what's been going on. Odds are it's not the lovebirds behind them or any of the boomer couples who can't even figure out a QR code, which narrows it down to the table full of prom kids across the room. And that seems to explain it. Annoyed, Violet decides that she's just going to ignore them, but everything changes when the prankster reveals that somehow they already know her name. Taking her phone, Henry opens the app and shows how it displays the names and photos of everyone in a 50-foot radius, which explains how they learned who she is. Looking through it themselves, they can see the profiles of everyone else in the restaurant, but the faces all match up to the accounts, meaning that they still can't figure out who the culprit might be. That's when Henry gets another idea, and using his measuring app, he paces out a 50-foot radius from their table, getting an exact visual representation of the area that they're dealing with. When he gets back, they learn that the lobby and kitchen are out of range, which means that the perpetrator has to be somewhere in the same room. Confirming their suspicions, the stalker immediately drops another meme mocking their attempts to find him, but their investigation gets derailed when the waiter Matt comes back with their drinks. He's just going over the night's specials when the prankster sends her another message, and opening it, it says that Violet needs to check her security cameras. Shocked, she opens the app and is terrified to discover a masked man armed with a pistol standing in the middle of her living room. The whole time, Henry here is trying to order their appetizers, and he notices that something has her distracted, but the stalker messages her again, telling her not to say a single word to anyone else. Panicking, she quickly excuses herself and tries to call the police, but the hacker lets her know that they can see her screen, and if she tries to call for help or leave the restaurant, then her family is gonna pay the price. Okay, it looks like poor little Toby here is about to get a visit from the world's worst babysitter. This, of course, is not good, and Violet needs to get her family some help as soon as possible. The stalker might be watching her phone, but they can't see Henry's or any of the staff's, so the best strategy right now is to try quietly passing someone a note with all of the details, you know? I'd wait for an opportunity to write a short message explaining what's going on and warning them not to act suspicious, and then secretly pass it to Henry, the waiter, or another restaurant guest. If she does it right, and everything does go according to plan, then all she'll have to do from there is keep playing along until help arrives. It's also still worth trying to identify the sender, and with a little improvement on Henry's strategies, she might actually be able to find them. Earlier, he showed Violet the app's map screen, which displays the profiles of everyone within a 50-foot radius and updates in real time as users move in and out of range. Knowing this, I'd keep the map screen open at all times, and whenever someone got up to use the bathroom or stepped out to the lobby, I'd check to see if their account or...
Discover a diverse range of African American egg donors with Lucina Egg Bank. Experience affordable donor egg parenthood with
the Let's Play profile had disappeared. Like, let's say the finance bro goes to the restroom and Violet notices the stalker's account leave the screen, but then as soon as he comes back, it pops back up. The culprit would end up identifying themselves, and the best part is that she doesn't have to write anything, signal anyone, or change anything about her behavior. Now, if that doesn't work, the memes might reveal more about the sender than they realize. What every single one of these has in common is that they're all from a time frame between 2012 to 2020, so they might as well be ancient scrolls in internet time. Now, based on that small detail, the suspect's most likely not one of the Gen Z prom kids like Henry first suspected, but probably someone who's already reached UNC status, putting them in at least their late 20s, but more likely even in their 30s or 40s. So I'd look for someone who's middle-aged, tech-savvy, well-dressed, and going out of their way to blend in. If Violet can find enough evidence to confidently identify a suspect before things get any worse, then that will make it a lot easier for her to regain some sense of control over the situation. But unfortunately for her, this won't be over until somebody is dead. Alright, Meat Shields, it's time to talk about something serious. If you've ever been seriously hurt in an accident, car, work, or jigsaw related, you might not realize the true value of your free unless you win. Protect your rights. It only takes a directly from your smartphone. It's just that easy. If you've suffered a serious injury, thanks to Morgan & Morgan for sponsoring today's video. And without further ado, let's get back to the show. Needing somewhere to collect her thoughts, Violet rushes to the bathroom and locks herself in a stall, but all she can think about is her son back at home. Just then, she hears a group of prom girls enter the room, and this gives her another idea. She's about to ask them for help when the stalker tells her to cut it out, and borrowing the girl's eyeliner, she tries writing a message on her hand instead. But even that isn't going to work, and all she manages to do is scare the girls away. Wondering how they could still be tracking her, she begins looking around the room for any listening devices or hidden cameras. And sure enough, she finds one tucked behind a decorative vase. A moment later, another diner enters the room, and Violet goes out of her way to make intense eye contact with her as she leaves. By now, she's been gone for a while and her date is starting to wonder what happened, but she has to keep playing it off and act like everything is completely fine. He's as understanding as ever, but while he's distracted, she turns the lamp and discovers that their table has been bugged as well. Acting like she's texting her sister, she messages the creep asking who they are, but they respond back taunting her, saying how they could be anyone in the restaurant. Although she's trying to keep her composure, Henry here is suspicious that she's getting harassed again, and he keeps insisting that he just wants to help. But Violet knows that if she tells him the truth, then her family is going to be in danger. Looking for another excuse, she decides to blame it all on her fear of heights instead, and her date immediately calls the waiter over to ask for a different table. It's kind of a big request at this fancy restaurant, especially on the first night that they've been there, but after pleading their case to his manager, he's able to get them some new seats. They're just about to follow him over when Violet gets another message warning her to stay put, and stopping dead in her tracks, she completely changes her mind, insisting that they need to go back to their original table. Without being able to explain why, not only is it embarrassing, it makes her seem downright crazy, and now the stalker just added a new challenge, saying that if Henry leaves, then she loses the game. The weirdness attracts some attention from the manager, who passive-aggressively reminds Henry that he specifically requested this table. Confused, he replies that he doesn't really remember making such a request, but the woman insists that's what it says in her notes, and decides to let it go without pressing for details. Alright, something about this is fishy, and I just don't mean the seafood. Although her ideas have not worked out, Violet here just learned something very important. Her date can't leave, which means that she's not actually the target, Henry is, and the stalker is just using her as a pawn to achieve their goals. Yeah, it's a bad position to be in, but understanding the rules of the game turns you from a pawn to a player. Now, if the stalker could physically intervene on their own, then they wouldn't need Violet here at all, and considering all of the grateful planning that it took to set this thing up, they might never get another opportunity like this again, so they can threaten Violet's family all they want, but unless she straight up blows their cover, it's all just a bluff. Like if they attack her family, then they have no leverage to use against her, and knowing this gives her the power to control the pace of the night to a certain extent. She can't push it too far, but what she can do is keep following their instructions while just pretending to be really bad at the job. I'd try to stall, delay, and screw up in small ways that wouldn't immediately cause her to fail, but might buy precious time or create.
Staying late again?
Yep, got prospect calls to summarize.
You really need to switch to Monday CRM. Your old CRM is holding you back.
My CRM is not old, it's vintage.
Complications in the stalker's plans, because as long as her family is still alive, then every moment that passes could mean a new opportunity to save them. Now, she also learned that Henry doesn't remember asking for this table specifically, so the most likely explanation is that the stalker found out about their reservation and then called to request the table themselves. It's possible that the host recorded their phone number in the reservation management system, so if Violet can access the front kiosk, she might find the stalker number under Henry's name. She can't do much with it right at this moment, but every little piece of identifying information helps in the long run. For now, she has to keep playing along, but there's one other tactic that she can try, and she's actually been doing it the whole time without even meaning to. She can't ask anyone for help directly, but by subtly acting off whenever she gets a chance, she might prompt someone to call the authorities out of concern for her safety or mental state. Even if she's contacted by medics or the police, the stalker won't want to blow their cover until the last possible couple seconds, so they'll most likely give her a chance to fix the situation on her own, and she can use the opportunity to quietly slip the authorities a message or a note, letting them know about the hostages back at the crib. Thinking that they must have confused him for another customer, Henry imagines that whoever originally reserved the table must be sending the memes as revenge. But Violet knows that the truth is much worse, and that's when they send another message saying that it's time to get to work. Changing the subject back to their dinner, she picks up the menu as if she's ready to order, using the opportunity to hide her phone and ask the stalker what they want her to do. But nothing could ever prepare her for what's about to happen next. After a moment, they message back saying that she needs to steal the SD card from her date's camera, but it's up to her to figure out how. Thinking quickly, she waits until Henry is distracted before taking off her gold watch and quietly slipping it into her purse. Acting like she just noticed it's gone, she asks her date to check with the host in case anyone happened to find it. It's an odd request for sure, but wanting to be a gentleman, he helpfully agrees to go ask, having no idea that she's just set him up. As soon as he's gone, she reaches into his bag and grabs the camera, but before taking out the card, she quickly powers it up to see what's on it. Flipping through the pictures, she discovers several documents showing backroom deals worth millions of dollars. But her date is already heading back from the lobby, forcing her to eject the card and stuff the camera back into the bag. He's disappointed to report that there's no sign of her watch, but that's when the stalker orders her to head for the bathroom. Needing an excuse, she pretends to suddenly remember leaving the watch inside, apologizing and promising to be right back, but it's clear that Henry's patience is probably starting to run out. Going to the sink, she asks the stalker what they want her to do next, and they reply that she needs to destroy the card and flush the pieces. They'll punish her family if she doesn't comply, and seeing no other option, her only choice is to grab a heavy planter and do exactly as they've instructed. But she's about to realize that this was just the start. With her mission completed, Violet tells the stalker that it's time to leave her family alone. But this sicko is not done with them just yet. Following their instructions to a paper towel dispenser on the wall, she opens it only to find a vial of poison hidden inside. And the kidnapper says that her next objective is to pour the liquid into her date's drink. Horrified, the woman refuses to go with it at first, but her family's lives are at stake, and it seems like she doesn't have a choice. Okay, well, there goes that opportunity. Great job, Dr. Doofus. You just gave the criminals exactly what they want while you were holding the key to safety right in your own hands. I mean, you might as well have flushed your family's lives down the toilet too, because Violet, you just f***ed up. So, quick question, and I don't mean to overreact here, but do you even realize what the hell you've just done? I mean, let's put on our detective caps and try to see the big picture here. The meme lord orchestrated this entire complicated mousetrap because he needed to destroy that card before Henry could leak it. But there was a flaw in his plan, even more massive than Ninja's low taper fade. And as soon as you got your hands on that card, you instantly held all the power. I mean, think about that for a second. That card was the one thing that he couldn't afford to let see the light of day, and he's willing to do literally whatever it takes to prevent the photos from getting out. But if he killed your family while you still had the card, then he's just adding more fuel to the fire. The truth could still be exposed, and his entire plan would fail. While you were holding on to it, you had him in just as vulnerable of a position as he has you, so it was kind of completely idiotic to throw that opportunity away for absolutely nothing. Now your ultimate bargaining chip is gone, and you're left with no choice but to do whatever they say. Well, I hope you're better at therapy than you are at negotiating, because I've got a feeling that your family's gonna need it after this. If they're even still alive by the time that it's all over, that is. But I guess now we'll just have to hope for the best, because Violet, you kind of f***ed up. Now, pause. Before we keep going, there is one idea that Violet could try while she is still in the restroom. Out in the restaurant, the stalker can watch her every move, but in the restroom, it's unclear just how much they can see. Knowing this, I'd go to the sink and act like I was crying from the shock of being told to kill her date, pretending like I needed to compose myself before I went back out. But in reality, I'd look for a chance to stealthily pour the poison down the drain without the stalker seeing and fill the vial back up with regular tap water from the sink. I mean, it's a long shot, but it could change everything if she's able to pull it off. Leaving the bathroom, Violet notices that the host carrying the phone from the restaurant's landline, giving her another idea. Instead of going back to her table, she follows the woman down the hall, noticing that she's out of range from the stalker once she hits the lobby. She asks if anyone else made a specific table request at the same time as their reservation. but the host dismisses her without answering the question, clearly thinking that she's out of her mind. As soon as she walks away, Violet grabs the phone and tries to dial 911, but the line immediately goes dead. Trying anything that she can think of, she gets on the computer and opens the National Help Hotline, sending a message to the live chat. But the stalker gets back within range, and seeing her through the cameras, they warn her to get back to her table. Before leaving, she notices that the finance bro Connor seems glued to his phone, and remembering how they bumped into each other earlier, she immediately locks in on him as the prime suspect. Storming up to him, she confronts the guy over his suspicious behavior, but doesn't have any evidence to actually accuse him with. And noticing that her date is staring them down, decides that she better get back to her seat. It's been such a long time when she finally gets back that she finds Henry here getting ready to leave, convinced that she actually wants to go home but is just too nice to end their date early. I mean, she obviously can't tell him the truth, but letting him go isn't really an option either, so grabbing his arm, she dramatically kisses him in front of the whole restaurant, convincing him to give her another chance.
It's so easy to become a podcaster with Riverside. First, go to Riverside and open an account. When you're ready to record...
Alright, that was a pretty damn close call, and it's a good thing that she was able to stop him, because after coming this far, it would be a disaster if she failed now. So Violet here seems to think that the finance bro is the prime suspect, but there is a critical flaw in her logic that proves he's actually completely innocent, and I'll explain why. Like we mentioned before, the app connects to any devices like within a 50-foot radius, right? When she moved to the lobby, she was briefly out of range from the stalker until they noticed and came back into a close enough proximity. But if the stalker was actually the finance bro, then this wouldn't make any sense, because why would his profile drop off when she was standing right next to him? If you're paying attention to their interactions and what we see from the cameras, then you know that Connor here hasn't moved from that seat like all night. And he never actually stepped out of range at any point while she was in the lobby, so logically, pinning him as the stalker just doesn't add up based on what we know and how the app works. But it's not all bad news. Like, for one thing, we can rule out Connor as a potential suspect, but for another, now that she has an even better idea of exactly where the real stalker is situated, they have to be seated at a table that's at least 50 feet away from the lobby, putting them somewhere on the far side of the restaurant in a very close proximity to her table. Now, Violet didn't have a lot of time at the kiosk, but if she'd shifted her focus just slightly, then she might have had a chance to catch the stalker red-handed. Whoever it was needed to move closer in order to reconnect to her device, so if she looked at the cameras and saw someone get up from the other side of the restaurant and walk closer to the lobby at the same time as the stalker's icon reappeared, then she'd know exactly who was behind this and be one step close to saving her family. As they go back to their seats, the piano player starts playing Baby Shark, fulfilling a sarcastic request that she made earlier in the night, and Violet sees another opportunity. Grabbing a $20 bill from her purse, she uses her lipstick to quickly write out a message explaining the situation before asking Matt here to pass it on to the piano man, making sure to mention that it's from her. After finishing his next song, he gets up for another drink and grabs some money from the tip jar. At the same time, her date happens to get an urgent phone call excusing himself to go take it in the lobby. With Henry occupied, she's free to watch as the piano player unfolds his bills, and sure enough, he looks back towards her with a worried expression on his face. It's still impossible to tell if he got the message or not, but it definitely looks like he's nervous about something. And when he goes back to the piano, he immediately chugs his entire martini as if he's trying to drown his anxiety in the booze. Henry gets back just as the waiter brings their meals, but when Violet cuts into her duck salad, she's horrified to discover the $20 bill hidden underneath. It looks like the stalker found out about her trick, and a moment later they send another message telling her that she made a bad choice. All of a sudden, the piano player stumbles out of his seat and collapses to the ground, but while everyone in the restaurant is focused on him, the stalker says that the consequences are just starting. And looking at the cameras, she can only watch as the kidnapper ambushes her family and takes them both prisoner. Seeming to get his composure, the man gets to his feet and staggers outside for some fresh air, but the stalker lets her know that he won't survive, threatening to do the same to her family if she doesn't play along. That makes one down with 6 more to go. Okay, so close yet so far. Passing a note to the piano player was actually a great idea, and it looks like it almost paid off, but everything started to fall apart once the control was out of her hands. The biggest problem was that Bozo here couldn't keep his poker face, and it goes to show you that you're only as strong as your weakest link. Now, when he first read the note, this triggered his startle reflex, an immediate neurological reaction to shocking stimuli which happens faster than you can consciously control. It's a perfectly human reaction to what happened, and these expressions tend to break through before you can consciously suppress them. But with that being said, once the initial shock of the situation wore off, there were actually steps that he could have taken to get his emotions back under control. The first thing that he'd want to do is subtly start box breathing, inhaling, exhaling, and holding between breaths in counts of 4. I mean, this immediately activates the parasympathetic nervous system to suppress the panic response, effectively calming yourself down on a subconscious level. I do it all the time. Then he'd want to keep walking to the bar as if nothing happened, casually pass the note to the bartender, and then calmly pull out his phone to call for help as if he's just making any other personal phone call. Now, to be fair, it looks like the guy tried his best, and even though he blew it, Violet still had one more chance for her plan to work. As soon as the piano player went down, she could have ran to check on him like all of the other worried customers, and then quietly slipped the note back into his hands. That way, the paramedics would still find it when they carried him to the ambulance. And the police would be on their way to her house before the stalker ever knew what happened. Completely out of ideas, Violet reluctantly accepts that she needs to cooperate, and looking for a way to deliver the poison, she convinces Henry here to do a shot of tequila. He tries, signaling the waiter, but she insists on getting their drinks from the bar. Only when she gets up from her seat, she accidentally knocks over her purse, dropping her gold watch on the floor and revealing that she's been lying to him this whole time. The bartender notices that she seems nervous, but with no way to tell if the stalker is watching, she has to keep playing it off as if there's nothing wrong. When the woman turns around, she's about to pour the poison into his drink, but a message comes through saying that she needs to do it at their table. And thinking quickly, she leaves without taking any limes as a way to create the opportunity. When she gets back to their seats, Henry confronts her with the gold watch, sounding upset that she won't just tell him what's wrong. He can tell from her suspicious behavior that something is definitely up, and says that all he wants to do is help her out, but she knows that she can't tell him the truth without risking her family's lives. Changing the subject, she asks why he chose to ask her out, and he explains that it's because she seemed like a genuinely good person. This brings up memories of her old husband, and how her decision not to leave him sooner still haunts her to this day. The conversation gets way more emotional than your average first date, so eventually they redirect back to the shots, with Henry volunteering to get some limes just like she planned. Uncapping the poison, she's just about to pour it into one of the shots when the waiter comes back with another glass of wine. Meanwhile, at the bar, the bartender mentions how Violet intentionally declined the limes the first time around, revealing that she actually didn't forget them after all. Matt here can't help but notice that she seems incredibly upset, but she continues playing it off as if there's nothing happening. And as he leaves, she notices the finance bro taking a table nearby. That's when the stalker messages her again, and with no other choice, she pours the poison into her date's glass, knowing that the kidnapper won't give her another chance. The stalker quickly sends their approval, confirming that he saw her fulfill the task, but they still aren't finished just yet. Now it's time for the moment of truth, and Henry raises his glass in a toast as he gets ready to take a drink, but just as he's about to do it, Violet intentionally spills her wine all over him, deciding at the last second that she can't go through with it. The distraction actually works, and he leaves to get cleaned up in the bathroom, buying her another chance to think things over, but the stalker makes it clear that he is not happy. Frustrated, Violet locks eyes with the finance bro again and decides that she's going to confront him, but that's when his sister actually shows up, making her second guess if he's really behind this or not. Lost in thought, she's taken by surprise when the bartender comes to check how she's doing, but this time it's more than just a friendly question. By now, she and the waiter have both noticed that something is most definitely wrong, and to them it looks like Henry is the one who's scaring her. But she soberly reassures them that her date is not the problem. Asking about the finance bro, she learns that his sister is a regular, but they usually take the table where her friend Richard from the bar is sitting. Apparently his date left because he was staring at Violet here the whole time, and that's when she finally makes the connection. The evil memer has actually been the sweet old man all along.
Say goodbye to your oil deliveries and high fuel costs by upgrading to a new ductless mini split system.
Okay, it looks like the troll is finally exposed. I mean, who would have guessed that innocent old Richard here was actually the psycho in disguise? But looking back now, he's been subtly dropping hints all night. Violet might have bumped into the finance bro when she first got there, but the memes didn't start coming until after the old man introduced himself. I guess that explains why they were all so ancient, and it should have been a dead giveaway when he said that his favorite social media site was Friendster. Like, what? I mean, that started back in 2003. And remember before when Violet was at the kiosk and we suggested checking the cameras for anyone from the far side of the restaurant who recently came within the 50-foot radius? Well, what do you know? There's Richard walking out of the bathroom right on schedule. It's just too bad she was already so focused on the finance bro, otherwise she might have caught him. Now Violet might not realize it, but this actually puts her at a tactical advantage. She knows it's him, but he doesn't know that she knows, which gives her the chance to reverse the trap. The man's date just left, and he also ordered a fresh cup of cappuccino that he's eagerly waiting to enjoy. This gives Violet a perfect excuse to approach him and a way to trick him into drinking the poison instead. I'd walk over to his table as if she still believes that he's just Richard and came to check on him as a friend after watching his date storm off. Then I'd cause a brief distraction by knocking over the water bottle or pointing to something across the room and use that opportunity to pour the contents of the shot glass into his drink. She's about to try a similar plan for herself, but instead of confronting him outright, a more subtle approach might have been worth a try. Following up on the hunch, she walks over to his table and offers him the poisoned shot, but of course the old man turns it down. He tries to keep up the act for as long as he can, but eventually gives himself away when he says her name, even though Violet says that she never told it to him. And realizing that he's caught, he instantly loses his entire friendly attitude, ordering her to sit down. No longer trying to hide it, he tells Violet to choose one of the shots and take it, forcing her into revealing which one has the poison. Convinced that there's nothing she can do to stop him, the man explains that he's really an assassin working for the mayor, and he specifically chose this table because it can't be seen on the security cameras. The plan was to kill Henry before he had a chance to blow the whistle on their shady business dealings and pin the whole thing on Violet here to throw off the investigation. Thinking that she's found a flaw, she points out that she can show all the drops to the police, but he was careful not to contact her in any way that could be traced. She wasn't even chosen at random either, because he knows that she was the only witness to her husband's death, and after being involved in another suspicious incident, he's hoping that everyone will be so focused on her as the suspect that they'll never think to question anyone else. He even made the poison from medication that she prescribes at her clinic accounting for every last detail long before the night even started. That's when her date comes back from taking a phone call and introduces himself, but he can tell right away that something about the situation feels hella off. Grabbing the shot glass, she hands it up and finally convinces Henry to drink it, promising to explain what happened as soon as she can. Asking for another moment alone, she orders Richard here to let her family go, and the man keeps his word just like he promised. All that's left now is to wait for the poison to do its job, but Violet here still has one last trick up her sleeve. While the man sits there eating his panna cotta, fully convinced that he's already won, she tells him a long story about how her ex-husband had the same dish on the night that he died, giving him plenty of time to eat as much of the dessert as possible before revealing that she never actually poisoned the shot. In fact, she actually snuck it into his dessert while he was watching Henry take the drink, and by now he's already as good as dead. Furious, the man pulls out the 9 and aims it straight at her chest, prepared to kill her right in front of everybody, but Henry here comes running over and jumps in front of the bullet, saving her life at the last second. In fact, the whole restaurant at this point breaks into chaos as he chases her across the room until the bartender shows up and smacks the gun out of his hand, but he slugs her across the face and pulls a damn knife out of his shoe before brutally stabbing her right in the back. Violet races for his weapon, but the man beats her to it, and taking out his phone, he orders the henchman to kill her family after all. It looks like she's done for, but grabbing this souvenir hockey puck that Henry got for her son, she throws it against the damaged window right behind him, and a moment later, he's suddenly pulled straight out of the building by the violent decompression, causing him to plummet to his death on the restaurant sign below. That makes 2 down with 5 more to go, and running to help her, Henry manages to pull her back up just in time. But now they still have to save her family before it's too late. Oh.
Has Kyrie texted you back?
I don't want to talk about it.
How was the math test?
Okay, well, that could have gone more smoothly, but it's hard to argue with the results here. Now, I totally understand the urge to tell Richard that she beat him straight to his face, but once the poison was in his system, it was only a matter of time before he keeled over dead. Telling him ahead of time just gave him a chance to pull out his weapon and call his henchmen, so really the smartest choice here would have been to save the shit-talking for later and let nature take its course. With that small tweak, this whole nightmare would already be over, but now she has a whole different problem. She's about 10 minutes away from home, even if she drives like Dominic Toretto, and there's no telling how long it might take the police to get going there. But with that being said, Violet actually has another option that she is not thinking of. She's got cameras set up all over her house, including one in her son's bedroom. But if you look closely, those cameras also have an alarm feature and a button that allows her to talk through them. If it were me, I'd set off the alarms on every camera in the house, hoping that the noise might be enough to disorient the kidnapper, wake up her sister, or even get some attention from the neighbors. I'd also hit the push to talk button for the camera in Toby's room and warn him that the kidnapper was on his way, telling him to hide in the closet and then run out when he opens the door, or escape out a window and run to a neighbor's house if he can. Seeing that he's still bleeding, Violet gives Henry here some fancy napkins to hold pressure on his wound before going to check on the bartender, who seems like she's going to pull through. It looks like they all survived, but there's still no time to waste, and running to her phone, she sees the kidnapper about to go into her son's room. Running back over to Henry, she grabs his car keys and rushes down to the garage while he calls the police, hoping to get there in time to save their lives. She tries calling her sister Jen, and although she doesn't pick up, the sound of it ringing wakes her up from being unconscious, distracting the kidnapper now that he has to deal with another threat. Her sister picks up the phone just in time to hear Violet's warning, dodging a shot from the hitman as she takes cover behind the kitchen island. Hearing a noise, he whips around to go after the kid instead, but she comes up from behind and shatters a glass pitcher over his head, stunning him just long enough for them to escape. They don't make it far before he catches up and fucking body slams her directly into a mirror, but as he scoops up little Toby here and starts running away with him, Jen stabs the creep straight in the thigh with a giant piece of broken glass, buying them another chance to retreat back upstairs. Rushing to the bedroom, she quickly pushes the dresser against the door just as the killer gets there, doing everything that she can to hold him back as he starts firing at them from the other side. Eventually, he's able to break through and she bites his arm to make him drop the weapon, but just as she gets ready to fire, he kicks the pistol straight out of her hands, and taking her down with a headbutt, he shoots her once in the shoulder before firing several times straight through the bed. Just then, he hears the sound of tires screeching as Violet whips into the driveway, but she dodges the shot as he opens fire and quickly grabs a knife from the kitchen. Circling back around, she waits for him to take the bait, only for her to charge out and stab him in the shoulder, but he counterattacks by throwing her so hard that she slides all the way to the other side of the room. Just when it looks like it's all over, an RC truck comes driving over with the man's pistol sitting on top, and grabbing it, Violet blasts the guy 4 times straight in the chest, finally putting an end to this nightmare once and for all. That makes 3 down with 4 survivors, and the next morning, she goes to visit Henry at the hospital, thanking him for saving her life. Now that their night from hell is over, they agree to give their relationship another try, realizing that they might be made for each other after all. But if I could just make one tiny little friendly suggestion, definitely don't choose a murder mystery dinner for your next date. Drop 2025. Yeah, cool concept. I really like the airdrop killer stalker meme